a little bit more of a continuous program opportunity, which is kind of a little bit nicer than capstone that ends.
Cool. That's super cool. And I see Sarah just turned on the YouTube streaming. So we are on YouTube for anyone who can't be here. But that's a super difficult challenge. So if it's extracurricular or in addition, it's not credit
Yeah,
bearing, it's like a
extracurricular. Yep.
student group, then how do you do the dynasty change semester by semester as the people rotate out? You must have a great culture of offboarding, onboarding.
A lot of assignments. They do a design document for documentation. We have a lot of different kind of mini assignments they do. And then hopefully not the whole team leaves. And that's kind of that repeatability aspect.
Yep.
But I would say on average, about half the team usually leaves. And then those people that stay can kind of help onboard the new people the next semester.
Cool. And then a lot of writing documentation and consuming documentation, both sides.
Yeah, exactly.
I was relieved to hear that the design leader and the materials leader are actually going to be back in January at the next semester. So, whew.
Yeah, 50% is average. There's some that the whole team stays, so that's good too.
Right.
That's cool.
Okay.
And the type of students, these are engineering undergrad, engineering grad, like what type of focuses do they have?
Yeah, they're all undergrad, and then it's all disciplines. But for those projects, we kind of lean usually more towards like mechanical and BME.
Cool. Very cool. And are they doing other open source assistive technology projects, or is e-NABLE their main focus?
Yeah, that's their only project.
Cool.
So yeah,
Super cool.
semester we have projects that they get to choose from, and they work on that project the whole semester. And then the
Yep.
next semester, if they stay, they can choose to continue with that same project, or sometimes they might switch.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why I mean, like the project's kind of, in a sense, separate of the students because the project will stay, and then we'll kind of fill it in with any gaps that there might be.
Very cool. Well, I could introduce the Brandeis team here. That sort of dovetails nicely, separate but sort of parallel. So Yewan is taking a class, Business 297, where students embed on the boards of nonprofits. And so Yewan is on the e-NABLE board. There's not exactly a board. There's the community meetings, the town halls, there's this meeting. So he just spent a semester on a graduate level class, understanding the pain points, doing a logic model. Yewan, I'll let you sort of describe your two big projects that you're thinking of.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Professor Roy. Yeah, so we will be so now like they're trying to integrate all the resources like the access to their models. They're trying to integrate all of them to the NIH 3D website. So it will be easier for the future customer or like participants to access all the models like easily. Like it's a more centralized like organized website. And Jenny and Ruby will help, and also Professor Roy, we will all be working on that to deal with the metadata of all those models and uh, also the website design just to make sure that like in the future e-NABLE will have a really nice NIH 3D website for the users to access and to find the models they're trying to they're looking for. Yeah.
And you want to talk about the hackathon too?
Oh, the hackathon. So it's gonna be January, and there will be a weekend, like 2, 3 days. We will be showing. So there will be many students from different schools, maybe around the Boston area, or like even from a little bit farther. They will come over to Brandeis and they will join this hackathon events. And I'm one of the like participants in the hackathon events, and I will show the pinpoints and also our goal of the project to the students, and whoever they come over, they can join us as a team to figure out a solution in those 2 days, or maybe like even after that.
So this is super exciting. There's sort of like two arcs to this. So the class Business 297 is internships in social impact organizations. So Yewan is getting 2 credits in the fall, 2 credits in the spring to understand the challenges of e-NABLE. Halfway through, he brings those challenges to our hackathon that I linked, and we are recruiting other schools that might want to join. But there's 14 nonprofits. e-NABLE is one of them. And then longer term, doing a board level project. And so part of that, we applied for one of the small grants from e-NABLE, and we're able to hire Jenny and Ruby this week. I think we sent out the offers on like Tuesday or Wednesday. So this is our first team meeting coming to this. We'll have a structured team meeting next week. But the longer term project is linked there, the NIH 3D print exchange. And we had a student work on the metadata schema and sort of port over the whole hub, but it's chaos. It has not been organized and ranked. So Jared and John, one thing we'd be super interested in talking to you and your students about is when they search for a hand, how do they think about it? And like, what would be the way to filter? And then what are the top models? We want to like have a top section. And I linked to the whole NIH 3D exchange categories. I think the model we're looking at is like the COVID-19 PPE section. I think they really like that. We saw that happening, which sort of inspired, like, we could do this better for e-NABLE. And if we do it for e-NABLE, we could use it as a lever to open up open source assistive devices more broadly. So I think we've got a good team that just really got moving this week, and we want to deliver something by May. But coming up in January, we do have a hackathon where any student, any full-time student, undergrad or higher, can join. And we do have a virtual component. It'll be on Discord. And we'd be super excited if anyone wanted to help with some of the pain points of e-NABLE.
I definitely would have students interested. So
the sign up link is live on that Dice Hacks link.
perfect.
Sounds good.
And I wanted to finish going around everyone, hear what everyone's up to and interested in, and then we can dive deeper into more topics. Stephen, you mentioned you were from California, Beverly Hills. What brings you to the meeting today?
Yeah, so I'm let's see. So let me just step outside real quick. I graduated at CSU Long Beach with a bachelor's in biomedical engineering. Last year, I happened to come across a bit of money I could spend on my own personal 3D printer, and got myself a Bamboo X1C for home.
Nice, that's the right
along with
one.
all sorts of fun filaments to play with. Not only that, for like the last 2.5 years, coming on 3, I've been working at a hospital here in Beverly Hills, Cedars-Sinai. We'll just be open about that. I work in a biophotonics lab where we are working on a project for detecting cancer with a UV laser. But unfortunately, my role there is just, it doesn't feel like I'm a part of the project. And so I've got a lot of hours where I'm just sitting here bored, wishing somebody would poach me, give me something to do. I also run a nonprofit uncoded meetup networking group, technique networking group in Long Beach. And we're expanding to not just our normal hangout, but we've got a trivia night going on. And for a long while now, my guys have been interested in volunteering for some stuff like this, where they want to learn skills. A lot of them, they're not usually students. Some of them are once in a while, but normally it's guys that are like, either they don't have a bachelor's degree or they do, but they're kind of in between jobs usually. Are always looking for advice, mentorship, opportunity to just like grow and learn and contribute to the community.
Super cool. Well, what an awesome place in your knowledge, career, and community to attach to e-NABLE and see what's possible. I would highly recommend, if you found us, you know how to use the calendar. I think the town hall meeting is where you would find the most juicy projects for you, especially if you're already like a pro designer and you're into fabrication. We can help with troubleshooting and getting you bootstrapped, but I think it sounds like you're already there. The next step is finding a problem worthy of tackling. And I think town hall meeting, they'll present any problems that someone hasn't picked up and also the broader team-based problems that you could jump into.
Okay.
And the next one is next Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern.
Friday at 11.
So
okay.
That would be 8 a.m. for you next Friday.
Okay.
And there, Jeremy usually runs through any unanswered posts from the hub. The other thing you could do is just get active on the hub and you'll see things surface.
Yeah, I've been doing that, posting and like just watching for anybody looking for help.
Yep. But I think you'll be recruited by Jeremy or John or someone to, if you're enthusiastic and you keep showing up, you'll be recruited to run a project or find like-minded folks to collaborate with for sure.
Perfect.
John and Jared, we've all been sucked in by John and Jeremy into these topics.
Yeah, I mean, and especially those of you who are, in that class of having a graduate degree and having a long-term career. I'm stuck where I don't really want to. I don't want to go to grad school because of the stipend being too low. It's just it's foolish at this time in my life and my career to like be willing to work for that little. But the dream is still there. Where I mean, I really would like to get to the point where my title is neuroengineer in biomedical engineering research.
Super cool.
So that's the hope.
Cedars-Sinai, you're working for a top national institution already.
Yeah, but it's awkward. I don't know if you know the culture in California, even in Hollywood. It's kind of awkward and difficult to really like find connections and get to know people.
Yeah,
but
totally.
yeah, so any mentorship, any direction, advice, opportunities, I'm all ears.
Excellent. Well, thanks so much for joining today. Does anyone else have a follow-up on anything Steven said? I want to continue around the room. And we'll come back to the previous discussions too. Omar, wanted to give you a chance to introduce yourself, where you're from, what you're interested in.
Right. Hi, guys. I'm Omar. I am in Seattle, Washington. I am a software engineer. I'm new to e-NABLE. This is my first time attending a meeting. But yeah, I have some experience with 3D printing, and I'm learning mechanical design as a hobby. So I'm really into printing, building, and assembling stuff. And I recently knew about like how there are open source prosthetics that can be built for people. And I was so intrigued. I started using like Maker's Making Change, which is another website.
Yes.
Yeah, but they were mostly doing like smaller assistive devices and like tools rather than like full blown prosthetics, which are, my understanding is that there is a lot of like these tools online and on Amazon, and like they're mass produced already, so there is like little impact there.
Yeah.
But for prosthetics, for like 3D printed hands, there is a lot of need, and there isn't, as if I understand, there isn't a lot of volunteers to do this. So I'm trying to find somewhere I can be I can have an impact here. But I used the website. I already finished like one device and I sent it over already.
You get your badge?
I don't think so, because like the person didn't like the person that received it is offline, so they didn't like finish the request or whatever. I'm still waiting for them. But yeah, I guess this is my first time attending here, and I think I would like to know more about like how can I find more cases, because the case finder on the website, I think there is
it's super difficult.
They're super saturated with volunteers already.
Yeah, and there's some groups working on redesigning the matchmaking right now. It sounds like John has a way into some of that too, potentially clients. I know a big challenge is a lot of makers in the US and less clients in the US. There's a lot of recipients internationally and less makers internationally. So the matchmaking is a huge barrier. And if you have a software background, I'm sure they'd also like to pick your brain about how to build a better matchmaking system. I know e-NABLE France was working on some of that. And I just put a link into the YouTube where this meeting is being streamed, but also you can see the previous town hall meetings where they're pulling up a lot of the cases that need attention from someone. That's a great place to look.
Also, during the town hall meeting would be a good place for me to join?
Yeah, I think if you're looking for a bespoke project or a match that hasn't been made, that's one of the top places to find it.
Awesome. Thank you.
But yeah, you've got the account on the hub, got the link to the YouTube, and then there's all these projects all around the world that are sort of spidering off in different directions. But great to have you here. Thanks for your enthusiasm.
Thank you. Yeah, great to be here.
Eric, wanted to give you a chance to introduce yourself, where you're from, what you're interested in. Give Eric another second, and we can come back if he's AFK. Okay, now I didn't want to hog too much time at the front of the meeting with Brandeis because we do have 4 people here. But Jenny and Ruby, wanted to give you a chance to introduce yourself, sort of what your interests are, what you're doing at Brandeis, and what brought you to the e-NABLE job.
Sure, I guess I can go first. So hi team, my name is Jenny and I'm a graduate student here at Brandeis. So this is my last semester here and my major is business analytics. I took a 3D printing class with Professor Roy this summer. So now I'm joining to this project as an intern. And it's exciting to meet you all and get to know the projects and challenges. I assume I will be helping on data integration and other stuff. So
Thanks so much. And Ruby.
Hi guys, I'm Ruby and I'm a computer science student at Brandeis. But I took engineering 11 with Professor Kranz at Brandeis this semester, and I did my own e-NABLE project with my team. We 3D printed a hand, and I was really attracted by this community and how like this community bring volunteers and people in need together, and also its educational sites. I really like its mission. So I think, yeah, I can help with the web development and how to design a web research system because I have some experience of web design also. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, welcome to the team. And I think this is, every university has a different niche. I think Jared's group is a more hardcore engineering group. Eric Bubar also does a lot of the physical testing of products. I think one of Brandeis' strengths is information design, information literacy. We can know just enough about fabrication to help sort and label and search for the right parts to make things reach further. So we can go into a general conversation now. We've gone around the room. Are there any projects people would like to discuss, pain points? I'm always interested in what equipment people are using and how their equipment is working. And like what vendor, like what model of machine you're using, hardware and software, and then what materials and where you see the limitations around that. Feel free to suggest a topic, but Stephen, your bamboo. So you printed one of the hands, got it assembled. What was the experience like on the, have you put a file through the bamboo yet on the, from the e-NABLE site?
No, I haven't yet,
Okay.
but I've been looking through them. I have in mind, I noticed there's a bit of a trouble with the was it they're all STL files and we don't necessarily have the original step files.
Yes.
I'm thinking one thing I would start to do on my own if I wasn't volunteered for another project is take some of those STL files and just like remake them as new step files. Maybe either give them a more of a Tron look because I noticed a lot of them they look a bit organic, so they must have been made in something like Blender. And since I'm using FreeCAD, that's a bit harder. So I'll probably give them more of a like futuristic kind of design structure, but it'll still function the same.
Super cool. And that's something we'd love to put in the new 3D Exchange and have sort of have the family tree of where it inherited the designs from.
Mm.
Yeah, everything basically is an STL file. For getting started, the recommended devices on the device catalog, I think is the place to go to.
Also, I'm really intrigued about OpenSCAD. I haven't quite learned how to use it yet, but I mean, if there's individuals with knowledge in that, I feel like it's a very, very valuable resource to, especially for resizing and such, that we would have issues with like throughout this kind of or the project.
Omar, I saw your hand go up. The code-based CAD.
Yeah, I've been using OpenSCAD for a few years. It's amazing. I love it. And I think maybe it's intimidating for non-developers, but like for me, as I think it's a lot less intimidating than any CAD software, than like learning AutoCAD or Onshape. And the good thing about it is that even if you're a non-developer, you can customize it really easily. At the end of the day, just a text file, you go to some line like a Word document and you edit a number, and that's it. Like, it's much easier to go and edit and resize models according to like a patient's input, without really having to understand like how a full CAD software works, and like re-rendering and dealing with STLs and all of that.
Totally. And usually we are working from a locked file. So that I think redesigning things could be very valuable. The other two ways that we approach that is using something that can drape or modify meshes like Rhino. Blender can do it too. I think Rhino's a little more turnkey for how to just push and pull on shapes to make them more organic. And Jenny knows one of the things we are really interested in is 3D scanning. So we could take a couple measurements, probably get a pretty good hand. We could also, if we get a 3D file, 3D asset of the upper limb, we could do like really cool integration of pushing and pulling between the two models.
So yeah, my thought is kind of like while I do have some time and can try to binge through tutorials, I feel like meetings where we sort of do a little bit of hand holding for those who maybe like know a tool along with people who don't, just to get like the basics quickly understood and questions quickly answered.
You could run a new meeting every week. Like, there's plenty of room in the calendar on like tutorials. Like, do a how-to meeting.
Okay. Yeah.
That would be super cool.
Yeah, because if we get shared knowledge like very quickly on OpenSCAD, and then I get my handheld to figure that out, or I can hold someone else's hand with understanding FreeCAD.
That would be an awesome new category of the YouTube too, to have like a separate e-NABLE YouTube channel on tutorials.
Oh yeah, definitely. Along the lines of YouTube videos, though, I like the idea. The only thing is, I've always found I'm really stressed for time when it comes to trying to edit them after the fact. So I don't know if that's.
I think one of the advantages here is Sarah is a great facilitator, and we just stream the whole thing with no cut, which then creates an information overload. But if you had the idea about maybe it's not an hour meeting, it's a half-hour meeting, and you go right like into the topic, it could be really useful. And I know a bunch of us would show up and contribute. Like, if you made the space, I'm sure other people would show up and help with content.
Okay.
Like, I'd be really interested too in like how Jared does project management with his students. Like a whole thing about like, so you're in education, how do you build this into a course or a club? Like, how do you actually build the structure to get things done?
Yeah, that works. I might be able to make some time on, say, Sundays for that.
I would bring that up at the town hall meeting, and Sarah can follow up after the meeting too. Like, you can reach out. I'm sure that there would be a way to carve out a space for that.
Cool.
You mentioned that you're using a Bamboo. We've been seeing a lot of enthusiasm for the new printers. I don't know if anyone else has been running them.
It's really good. The competitor that makes me still a little jealous I don't have it is the Prusa XL.
Yeah.
As far as like, if you haven't heard the rumors already, the excess poop in between switching filaments is kind of annoying. It doesn't really end up being too big of a drag on materials, but what it actually drags the most on is it adds time just to switch out the nozzle each layer.
Tremendous amounts of time. Yeah.
So other than that, it's quite dependable. I ran into lots and lots of troubleshooting, trying to push it to its limits with point two nozzle kind of work. I wanted to get like fully transparent, like fine detail things, just to see if I could specialize in that. Yeah, I saw where the walls were. You'll end up having a lot of nozzle clog with the acupuncture needle kind of issues when you're trying to do things a little too fine-tuned. But with a 0.4 nozzle, whatever you're trying to create, it's amazing.
Jared, what kind of fabrication tools does ASU use?
So we primarily just use some Prusas. We have like a makerspace with a bunch of them, and then if there's anything else they need that's a little bit better, we can reach out to different labs on campus that have better printers.
Yep. Yeah, so sort of build the model and then make it better.
Yeah, our kind of print lab space is for quantity, not necessarily quality.
Yep.
Very much prototyping.
I might have also forgot to mention I work with a Prusa MK3.
Oh yeah.
So like right now I'm at work. I've been assigned nothing to do. So I'm working on little projects I've made for myself to try and help the lab.
Cool.
I am too a fan of everything bamboo. They made a really smart product. I love it.
Yeah.
Like coming from an ender, now the fact that I'm actually spending time printing rather than fixing something that's broken, it's amazing. Like I got an X1 6 months ago, and I'm already hitting like 1,000 hours.
Yep. The throughput becomes amazing. Plus it prints so fast.
Yeah.
Those 1,000 hours equal like 3,000 hours. Yeah, we are a tool agnostic shop at Brandeis, although we do teach Prusa Slicer as what we teach in courses now. So I know Ruby and Jenny have been trained in Prusa Slicer. Yewan, you've done some of the printer trainings. That's our tool for entry. But I taught a course where an ender was a textbook, and we put over 150 students went home with a working ender over like 5 years. So that I'm very familiar with tearing down the low-cost machines. And personally at home, I have a couple sad enders that are overly modified that were really tinker machines, and I've moved to bamboo. And everyone I know who has a printer at home in the last year has gone bamboo and is very happy with it. I think the only thing that I'd be curious to hear about more institutional use. Our Prusa is one of the reasons we like Prusa is teaching the software is great, but also that maybe 150 plus people use that machine a week, like different people. And when they fall down, they're a little easier to stand up because of their open source guide infrastructure. Where the bamboo is great if you're a pro and you're using it, you can maintain it. But as soon as you have people of very different abilities, the repair costs get to be a little bit more. We're really into hardware software, I think. And where they meet each other, I think, is one of our. We don't have an engineering major yet, but we're headed there. We're really interested in how you get information from your brain to a computer to the real world.
Yeah, I think bamboo is great, but as you said, it's really hard to modify the machines or to replace it. Even like changing the nozzle size, you have to take out the head and push and pull some wires, which you can damage. It's not as easy as any other printer.
There are lots of solutions out there I've come across. One I was thinking of getting it's like a 4-letter a brand name starts with an R, like Renault or something like that. They or Rollo. What's it?
I think it's Revo.
Revo, yeah, Revo. They have nozzles that are they once you install like the first insert, I think it is, they can be changed out in like 30 seconds. It makes a huge difference from what I understand.
Have you used them? I've been looking at them, but I haven't seen anyone actually using them.
I haven't, but I think it was the Next Layer or one of my more like preferred YouTubers that covers this stuff. He reviewed them and it was really good. Also, they've got their special heat distribution kinds of nozzle designs that help for faster flow rate.
We have a question from Eric, who is teaching a high school class right now, so can't talk. He uses Autodesk Inventor in their high school engineering class and wonders if our files are compatible. And definitely, you can definitely bring the files in, but like Stephen mentioned, they're often locked and you have to either draw on top or manipulate the mesh. And I think with Inventor, that would be drawing on top or combining other files with.
If it has an option for export as step file rather than STL, then that should be golden. Any AutoCAD. any CAD software should be able to open it.
So you'd be going into Fusion with it, but it would come in as a mesh, not as a project file necessarily, unless you can find a step file, and then that would be great. But I think Ruby, I don't know if you did this in this version of Engineering 11 with Professor Crohn's, but modifying the files is a little trickier in Fusion. Fusion isn't super mesh optimized. It's much better with the step files like Stephen mentioned. So you can draw on top, but you can't like drape.
I don't really like
easy.
Fusion.
Fusion is a great Swiss Army knife, but I think there's so many different ways in. We support probably 20 different CAD tools. And I think from the e-NABLE that come out as STLs, we've been having a lot of success modifying them with Rhino because it's more, you can work with the organic meshes a little easier.
Yeah, for our project, we only need to scale it, but we don't need to revise it in Fusion. Yeah, I guess it's because it's hard to.
Well, now you can do a lot of those quick edits with like Prusa Slicer or Bamboo Slicer, kind of the same software. You can do quick modifications or chop things up or combine things together.
See.
So, John, you're more on the client side. I just wanted to follow up with John on, do you have more clients that need help in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, I mean, they largely, historically, they sort of work on limbs, prosthetic, but they're not necessarily within the e-NABLE scope because they're largely plaster cast based and more mechanical based. But the Centre of Handicap, I noticed there's not one chapter in either Sri Lanka or India. I mean, the nearest one I could see on your map was in Nepal, in Kathmandu, which is geographically miles, obviously, from Sri Lanka. But what's interesting, following on from the discussion about printers, we're doing a little bit of a sort of an audit within our partnership at the moment as to who uses what printer. And because the Centre of Handicaps, which is largely supported by Rotary in Sri Lanka, they have been lucky enough to secure sponsorship, and they've been provided printers, and I don't know the name of them at the moment, are being provided to the Centre of Handicap. And then what we're looking for is people to train people up to use them. And there's no doubt there's a lot of knowledge out there in e-NABLE, and all these printers that have been mentioned, there's going to be a scope there for people to sort of help them out, basically, because what they're looking to do, a Georgia school trained us up in the UK, and we bought a MakerBot printer. I don't know the actual model at the moment, but they enable then the school over in the UK to produce prosthetics, which is what they were doing in Georgia. So what we're looking to do really is now expand it and do the same thing, but with the Centre of Handicapped over in Sri Lanka, and skill them up to produce their own prosthetics. And obviously their clients are sitting there with them, and they can actually have that direct dialogue. But I did notice on some forum that one of the difficulties with this, there's a lot of people enthusiastic about actually producing prosthetics, but finding clients is sometimes the most difficult part. And I think the Centre of Handicapped, there's a lot of scope there over in Sri Lanka, and we built up over the last few years a good working relationship with them. And this latest step of the ASU students getting involved is looking good.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
no, because that is one of the biggest challenges.
Yeah, the high school are coming in. Somebody mentioned sort of making change, the adaptive devices and so on. They're very good for the high school for when you actually start learning about it and sort of printing the hands and figuring out how they all go together and that type of thing. And the adaptive devices are quite good. Oh, you can go on Tinkercad, produce something, print it off quite quickly, and then take it home, show parents, and get enthusiastic about it and so on. But I'm talking about younger students there, but it gets them going. So those are some of the things that we're doing. We've not we've only just started in the last meeting to pull this list of printers together, what everybody's using. But I've made some notes about some printers that have been mentioned here. And one of the students at ASU has sent me a link through to their printer lab and how they actually organize printing at ASU. So that's quite good because
Cool.
that's it's going to help with the understanding of this.
Well, if you need more tech support, I know like our 3D printing club and our prosthesis club would be happy to share some of their like train the trainer materials.
Wonderful. Yeah. That sort of hands-on, drop online like this type of support, all the way from sort of there's the printer, open the box, and this is how to set it up.
Yep.
That would be really useful.
Yeah, I think you would have no shortage of interested students to show up and help with that.
Fantastic. Yeah, that'd be really good.
Stephen, were you saying something a minute ago? Did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up. I highly recommend FreeCAD at this point over all the proprietary softwares because they finally launched version 1.0 and they're really doing well. One of the things that I think everyone here could really appreciate that I discovered about it is if you go into the settings, you can open up a Python console, and what you'll see is every command that results from every button you push in Python code, which you can just as soon also type in the console to do the same commands. So you can end up learning their code, just reverse engineering, looking at that console like I did. I actually used it all to make a macro for myself because my work, my boss asked me to like organize drill bits. So I went through this huge project of designing a drill bit organizer, and I needed each slot to represent each size, which wasn't like a clear pattern. So I have a spreadsheet in there that has all the size listings, and I made a macro for just starting at this size, make a row of slots, and
That's cool.
coincide
the
with each
macro
one.
possibilities are awesome too for templating out things that you do over and over again. That's super cool. The automation possibilities are huge.
Exactly. And so while I've got a very, very slow computer at work, I still managed to like get it all completed. Now I'm working on trying to get it to print right on the MK3, but that's about
That'd
it.
be super cool. Like a FreeCAD tutorial, I think people would find very valuable.
If you are interested in OpenSCAD, there is a project called Gridfinity. You might be aware of it for organizers and things like that.
We got a problem. It's all encompassing once you get into it.
Yeah, but there is OpenSCAD implementations for it, which is you can just parameterize with your bit sizes and print.
Do people know about this? This is another great open source hardware. Not exactly assistive tech, but parallel. The Gridfinity is a way to organize tools and things related, parts, fasteners, tools. I've got a little box I'm working on over here I can show.
Yeah, I've seen so many like drill bit organizers, and I tried to print a few already. So that although I probably have a much smaller set than you have at work.
In our labs they've gone crazy with it. It's like everywhere.
The trick that I learned is like there was a thing that called itself a keep it simple stupid drill bit organizer that I googled, and basically what they do is they have a limited number of paints, like say 8 paints, and they color code in succession, and then paint the bottom of the drill bit, right? So that you can still color code and you look at, here's the color. Okay, I've got this drill bit. It's red. There's multiple reds, but you can tell by the size just looking at it because they're so spread apart which one it is.
That's super cool.
But yeah, the Gridfinity, I'm really like, I feel like I don't want to get into it until it's perfected to the point of like, I could put together an automated storage system, right? Yeah. Like basically a tiny warehouse for my desk.
Yeah. One of the students, Sam, who runs our engineering classroom's tech support side, has organized all our Prusa parts in Gridfinity. It's like immaculate. I wish I was in that room today. But I've just been playing with it to make like a little portable soldering kit. So I had my soldering set up in like a crummy cardboard box that came in. But what's so cool is like for any tool you already have, there's probably a Gridfinity holder already for it that you can find someone else designed that'll fit your tool perfectly. Like, like this is not a good one. I want one that takes up less space, but we all have this. Anyone that prints uses these.
This is the one that comes with Ender, right? Like the old Enders.
Yeah. We've got piles of these around our labs. But yeah, just thinking of a better way to store everything. And then it's got a standard grid size that clips into any of and you can make boxes, you can make drawers. Really cool open hardware. And maybe we could organize some of our e-NABLE kits a little better in the engineering classroom. Ruby, you've seen the drawer of e-NABLE parts. It's a little chaotic. This is my favorite thing about open source hardware, the scalability, the customizability, the way the design sort of like explodes globally and different people are doing different pieces of it. And then what becomes the problem is information design. How do we find all the pieces and sort and search?
I think that's one of the things that like something like OpenSCAD can help with, because at the end of the day you have a Git repo and you have like modules, your own modules with like the specific bins and organizers that you already printed, and you can just like keep iterating over them. Nothing gets lost.
No, and Git version control is such a great model for software that totally works for hardware. So we have time for maybe one more topic. We have about 10 minutes left. If there's a topic anyone would like to discuss before we close out.
Yeah, can I just ask, you're still really learning about how to connect with e-NABLE chapters, because we've only got 2 in the UK. Geographically, they're quite a way away from us, but in terms of setting up a chapter, what are the sort of the processes that you go about setting up a chapter?
There is a how to set up a chapter in the hub that I can probably pull up.
Okay, right. And then we were trying to connect, Gerard has had to leave the meeting because he's had to go, but we were trying to connect with We Build Prosthetics over in Phoenix Way. And I did sort of ask him if it was an ASU setup, but it's not. And he's trying to connect with them. We work with Sequoia High School up in Georgia, and they've got a Sequoia Robotics, their chapter is called, and clearly sort of high school focus. I reached out to somebody who we work with near Atlanta, and it's called e-NABLE Atlanta. But I'm still learning about how these chapters are sort of run and who's running them and what are they doing? What's the sort of the basis of the chapters? I guess the chapter leaders go to these town hall meetings and they discuss their projects that they are currently.
Yes, and there is a chapter leaders meeting also,
right.
But it's not heavily attended. And I think chapters are often very active, and then there's the dynasty change, usually through graduation or through another career change. So organizing the chapters themselves is another pain point for e-NABLE. But there are a pretty straightforward way to get to be one on the map. First, you get a maker badge and then a chapter badge. So you make a hand, or you have a couple people make hands, and then you get the chapter badge, which there's a link to in the chat. And then you fill out a Google Doc to become an official chapter. So it all starts from Ruby, what you did, assembling a hand. You have to assemble a hand and show it moving. That is the first badge. And then from there, you can say, all right, I have a bunch of people. We're going to meet weekly. We'd like to see problems. And John, I think you've got actually the biggest pain point, which is client matching. Client matching is the thing that is really difficult to figure out. And I know e-NABLE France was working on a better chapter map and matchmaking system that would go together.
Sounds good. Yeah. Maybe that's somewhere where Rotary can come in, because Rotary's got a sort of wide reach generally in war zones or difficult zones in the world. And there's a lot of people impacted by war, and the prosthetics are in big demand. So
Totally.
that's another route.
And one thing I know, like I put my email in here a little ways up, I'll put it in again. If you ever wanted a group of students to run a tutorial or talk about how to learn how to use the equipment, I think over 8-9 years now, we've made maybe 15 hands for kids that need hands, and that's been based on who's running our club. But I think we can do way more with information design locally. Like I think our lever is, what is best practice in operating a machine? What is best practice in modifying a file? How do we work from 3D scans? How do we do what this team here is doing? How do we organize the information better? So I'm interested in those ways we could act like a lever to get the next groups activated as well. And I think what Jared and I are both doing, trying to build this more into curriculum. Because the theory of change there is, if we get young engineers a bias towards repairing the world with their skills early, that will have downstream effects later in their careers. I think one of the mantras we're trying to do with Yewan's class is, you don't have to choose between making a lot of money or doing good in the world. You can have great jobs where you can do both, and that we hope that's the future of work.
So yeah, along those lines, my experience with my nonprofit, like we're always at the forefront of seeing where people get stuck, where either you're stuck because maybe college doesn't work for you, but you still have good tech school skills and can teach yourself, or you're stuck because you're in school and you're expected to do all of this extracurricular stuff in order to be able to make it into grad school. And then on top of that, you say you get your degree, and like me, you're stuck because there's still a lot of barriers in research that don't want you if you don't have your graduate degree, and that's in no way feasible unless you can just throw off like a few years of your life, like almost a decade of your life, just to not have sufficient income so that you can learn. Like all of it is just so obtuse, like the way the system's designed. So what my organization tries to do is just the antithesis, where we want to utilize the actual true nature of learning, and just like go, look, we're always learning. We all have skills we can grow and learn from, and then we network to put all that together. So just to say, like, I would like for my organization to know more details of, like, in the industry, what is a better takeoff point, like if necessary. I'm kind of encouraging that while everyone's complaining that there are no jobs, that means that we should be making jobs. And so I didn't study business, but I recognize the value of, like, I need some business experts or people with experience to go, here's a way to really ramp up and make all of that start your own business stuff that scares people really simple, so that people have so that it's nothing compared to like the actual hard work that they've already put in and that they want to do.
Yeah, totally. No, that's super exciting, and that's a topic that I care about a lot and would love to chat more about.
Yeah,
I think there's like sort of the whole spectrum of tools, from how do you make stuff, and then how do you make stuff in the context of society? Like, how do you build businesses to support making stuff? Oh, Omar, did you have a comment?
No, I just have a question, and I realized there's 3 minutes remaining. So
yeah, sure.
I was just wondering, for people who want devices, the first step, I guess, is like taking measurements, which is something that's hard to do if you don't have any 3D experience, or like if you are in a different country, I can't necessarily like help with doing that. I wonder, how does that typically work? Like,
so The traditional way that e-NABLE has done this is by taking a picture of the upper limb difference with a ruler in the photo from a couple different key angles.
Is
And
that
then
like accurate enough?
It's accurate enough because the fit tolerances are not like sub-millimeter. Like a couple millimeters, because usually too, there's some padding. And anyone correct me if they have a different point of view. But the way we've seen this is a photo with a measurement on it. And then usually we bring that photo as a layer into CAD. So we'll like pull that into Fusion 360 as a layer and then use it as a reference drawing, scale it up so that it's appropriate, and then import the model and manipulate it, the 3D model with the 2D picture as a plane reference.
Okay.
Which
Thank
is,
you.
talk about brute force. Like, I'm sure that like as a software person, you're like, why are they doing this manually? Right? I think we could do it a lot better.
And I'm just worried about like how error prone that process is, but if it's accurate enough, I guess it works.
Yeah, and John just sent the link. That's the technique I'm familiar with.
Thank you, John.
But yeah, now that we're getting 3D scanners in our pockets, I think it's ripe for change. Like the 3D data of the world is about to become super accessible.
Yeah.
And I know there's some groups doing this. It's just not well documented. Another thing we'd like to do with the hub is get some of those resources floated to the top.
Is there any preferably open source software you recommend for getting into scanning?
So not exactly. Alice Vision is a photogrammetry suite that is free. And photogrammetry is photo-based scanning. So you take a series of 2D photos, and then the software does trigonometry and creates 3D shapes. So a camera on your phone is more than good enough to get good photos. Alice Vision works, but is very, very slow. So we don't teach with it because I can't get a render done in class time, but you can get a render done. We use Agisoft's Metashape, which is expensive, couple $100. But Alice Vision is a similar algorithm that's open and free. I'll put it in. And would love to geek out more about 3D scanning stuff. But we are at the top of the hour. So we'll be back in January to talk more about education uses and new member stuff. In the meantime, town hall meeting next week. Stephen, Omar, it sounds like that's where you want to be really to find a juicy project. And careful, because John and Jeremy will pull you into owning a section like they did with me. So I can't wait to see what that looks like in the future. And I'll be here once a month for education, but usually try to pop into the town halls when I can.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Good to see you, John. Brandeis team, thank you so much.
Everybody.
I hope this helps orient you into the project.
Thank you.
Thank you
Yeah,
so
definitely.
much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.